I'm sorry, but whenever someone tells me that if I want to feel better about myself, I just need to stop comparing or I simply need to spend less time on social media, I call bullshit.
Did you compare yourself to like other people?
Yeah, just
Yeah.
like, why are they doing better than me? Did you see that person's house? You know, that sort of comparison is the thief of joy, is the expression.
Yes.
Research tells us that the more we compare ourselves to other people, the less happy we are.
So slow down. Stop looking around at what everyone else is doing and focus on where you are and what's important to you.
Stop comparing yourself to other people.
I don't know about you, but hearing advice like that doesn't make me feel any better. In fact, it makes me feel worse. So I already feel bad about myself because I'm comparing myself to other people. And then I feel crappier because the advice is it's easy, switch it off, just stop comparing. And I can't even do that. It is horrible. Listen, I'm not saying that they're wrong, the advice. Comparison can bring out the worst in people. It definitely did in me. I'm just saying that it's not as easy as they make it out to seem. So how do we get out of this absolute mindfuck? By the way, if you're new here, my name is Dee, and I'm the CEO of Right Hook Digital, the growth marketing agency behind some of the internet's favorite brands. And on this channel, I share the strategies that I've learned across my career to be a clearer thinker, a higher performer, and overall just trying to be a better leader for my people. If that's the stuff that interests you, do consider subscribing to my channel. So in this video, we're going to be talking about 3 things when it comes to comparing ourselves to other people. First, if it's so unhealthy, why can't we help ourselves? And why do we do it all the time? Then we'll look at what the research says around how comparison affects our ego, our behaviors, and our brains. And I'm going to share with you the nasty ways that it used to affect me too. And finally, I'm going to share some simple mental tweaks that I made so that whenever my brain did compare myself to other people, I stopped feeling like an absolute worm and instead used it to fuel my fire. Let's call it the worm fuel approach. I don't know, I just completely made it up on the spot. If you've got a better name for it, let me know in the comments. Give a brother a hand. In the meantime, let's get it. So why do we compare? Well, according to evolutionary psychology, we do that because in some way it ensures our survival. Back when we were cavemen, I guess, to survive, we needed to have some ability to size ourselves up against a threat and decide whether to fight or to flee. And because we're not cavemen anymore, we also compare ourselves in terms of social status too, because our standing in society would determine how easily we would get stuff like food, shelter, and who would mate with us to ensure that we have offspring. Again, stuff that ensures our survival. Now, this makes sense though, right? If you're the village idiot that's unaware that you're just pissing everyone off and you can't compare, then it'll be a shock to you when you find yourself completely this ostracized or just kicked out of the village. Don't get food, don't get shelter, and no one's going to mate with you. Which brings me to social comparison theory. Social comparison theory was put forward in 1954 by the social psychologist Leon Festinger, the same guy that came up with the theory of cognitive dissonance, that guy. According to him, when our brains compare, it's actually trying to help us identify where we can improve, which makes sense if you overlay that with the whole survival instinct thing. We're trying to find ways to improve our abilities, move up in the pack, and overall just improve our quality of life. And according to Festinger's theory, we tend to compare ourselves in one of 2 ways, upward comparisons or downward comparisons. Where it messes with our heads when we do this comparison is when we tie it directly to our self-worth. So here's a true story. Back when I was a kid, I was on the school swim team for the 4x50 relay. And there was this kid on my team who I was always just neck and neck with when it came to our timings. And I wanted to be faster than him so badly. And at districts, we won the race. 4 districts. Everyone was over the moon. But my coach walked over to me and showed me his time versus mine. And I found out that I was way slower than him. Instead of being happy, I got super pissed off and I was miserable for the rest of the day, supposedly because I lost against a guy who I was competing with and he didn't even know I was competing against him. I was just comparing all the time, which is super crazy because we were on the same team and we won. So this stuff can get really, really ugly when you start comparing in that type of way and it sticks in your head. So let's talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of how upward and downward comparison can affect us. So when we're making downward comparisons, what we're doing is comparing ourselves to the people who we think just aren't at our level. If you got your head on straight, it's helpful. It gives you a temporary boost of self-esteem. It helps you look at that person and look at where you are and go, wow, I can really appreciate how far I've come and how much I've had to do to get to where I am now relative to them. Where it gets bad is if you start letting it let you become complacent and your performance just starts slipping, especially if you're constantly catching yourself comparing. It could put you in a sense of just false security and false superiority. Where it gets really ugly, though, is if that's your pattern and you tend to just shit all over the noobs, thinking that you're the big dog. That just isn't nice. Not only that, but it turns you into this person that could get stuck, right? Especially if you let it persist, because you are the best of the worst, essentially. And not only does that make you a belittling jerk, it also blocks the growth that you can have. This used to be me, especially in my 20s, and was a really, really ugly trait. And it happened so much that eventually I turned that trait into a character, and I called him Mr. Shu, the guy who shits on you. And I knew what he was trying to do, even at the time, I guess after a bit more reflecting and all that. He was there as this immature coping mechanism for my own inadequacies, whether I wanted to admit it or not, or stare at them. It was something just a lot more deep-seated. So if this is you and you're still watching to find out what you can do about it, I salute you. That definitely used to be me. Before we get to doing that, though, let's talk about upward comparisons. Most of the people I know are seasoned experts at doing the upward comparison thing. This is where we compare ourselves to other people that we think are in the better position than we are. Now, we don't know for sure whether it's true or not, but our brains kind of fill in the blanks anyway. Where it's good, but super rare, is that when you do that, this go-getter voice in your head, that character starts to wake up and goes, I want that for myself. What they have, I want it. And you start to figure out ways to get yourself into that position. Good for you. You're one of the rare people whose brains just aren't a noisy mess like me. Where it can get bad is if it starts to just make you feel bad that you're not in that position, but that feeling doesn't linger. And by tomorrow, you don't mind it anymore. It's not great, but it's not ugly. Where it gets real ugly is when that little diminisher voice in your head tells you that you're worth less than the other person. And you start feeling inadequate and incapable.
You are worth less. You are worth less. You are worthless. You are worthless.
Turns out, Mr. Shu doesn't discriminate. He can quickly turn into Mr. Shmee, the guy who shits on me. Or that little green goblin shows up. You know, the one that gets you jealous about that person? And this green goblin always wishes for like bad stuff to happen to them because you can't have it. Bad stuff must happen to them. That character can come out too. Okay, so I don't know if you notice a little trend here with what I'm doing. By turning these voices into characters, something cool happened. Because I started to wonder if these voices can grab the mic and these characters can grab the mic whenever they want. Could I grab the mic back whenever I want? So instead of trying to stop myself from comparing, because as we've established, that is near impossible, why even keep trying? That's a pointless exercise. Can I take control of my own mind and the narrative that it feeds me whenever I compare myself to other people just by grabbing this mic back from those characters? And if I could pull this off, what would life look like? So that's when I went and did as much research as I could to figure out what I can do about it. Hence, the worm fuel approach. I know I'm still going on with the worm fuel thing. So the first part of this worm fuel thing is auditing your patterns. It's almost no point to making yourself stop comparing because that's just completely pointless. But you also don't want to feel crap and inadequate every time you do compare, especially if you're comparing up, right? So for me, what I had to do first was audit my patterns and get really honest with myself around these questions that I found during my research. So here are the questions. First one, who usually grabs the mic whenever you do compare? Is it the asshole critic, the one who makes you feel inadequate and worthless and helpless? Is it the asshole critic the other way, the one that craps all over people that are not at your level? Or is it the go-getter, the one that switches on something in your brain to motivate you to get going and get better? Next question, do I equate their success to my failure or my failure to their success? Right? And what does that say about me? What does that say about my perception of my own self-worth? Last two questions. How much headspace on an average week do I spend doing this comparing? And is that really the best use of my time? Like, isn't there other stuff that I could be doing to improve myself rather than get stuck in this comparison thing? I compare, I feel inadequate, I feel like crap, I don't do anything, which makes me feel like crap, and going down that cycle. Isn't there something better to do with my time? Getting honest with myself by answering those questions and actually taking the time to write down my answers was the thing that helped me be so much less emotionally reactive whenever I did compare, and allowed me to spend more effort focusing on myself and more time actually improving. And I'm so glad that I did this because it also revealed where I need to do the work, right? Getting myself to a place where I could truly believe that I am good enough in the way that I am. And I can appreciate the stuff that I have and all the stuff that I've done, all the hard work that I've put in and the mistakes I've made, even I can appreciate that. And this is the cool part. It also helped me be very okay with the fact that I have so much more to learn. And when I do catch myself comparing, because I'm so much less reactive, I can calmly ask myself these questions now to help me focus on myself and improve. So let's go to those questions. What questions can we ask ourselves when we do catch ourselves comparing? Here we go. Question number one. What exactly, that person that I'm comparing myself to, what exactly do they have that I want? Next question. Is there a sense that I'm entitled, that I deserve what they have? Why should I deserve it? What must be true for them to have what they have? Don't just look at the cherry pick, selectively the thing that you're comparing yourself to. Look at their whole life. What must that, celebrity, athlete, whoever, CEO, successful business person, what else must be true in their lives for them to have what they have across the relationships, the time that they spend, how much stress they have, how they eat, how they sleep, all that, right? And if you can consider that, you can then ask yourself, well, what must be true for me to have the thing that I want, then when I'm comparing to them? And finally, am I willing to do those things? So when you do catch yourself comparing, you can use these questions to help reframe the comparison. And instead of getting caught up in all that emotion, you can turn that comparison into a goal that drives you forward. And if goal setting is something that you struggle with, you can check out my video here, which is all about how I struggled to hit my own goals and the method I use to put an end to that once and for all. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time.